Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Pilot Principle, the podcast where we take a look at just the first episode of a series, the pilot, and then use it to decide if we should watch the entire series, or at least the second episode. If you are new here or you are a regular listener who isn't already doing so, please give a tippity tap on that follow button on your audio streamer of choice. Now, on this episode of The Pilot Principle, we shall be taking a look at the pilot episode of Netflix's new, I want to say, superhero drama series? Yeah, superhero drama series, Supacell. The series synopsis, according to Netflix, tells us the following. When Michael develops the ability to teleport, he must find others with superpowers to help him protect the future. How ominous. Now, before we get into looking at the pilot episode itself in detail, let us look at the credits, because I personally just like having a little goose and a gander at some of the behind the scenes bits and bobs. We have a pilot title of Michael and a pilot synopsis that tells us delivery driver Michael has big plans for the future with his girlfriend until something odd starts happening to him and others across South London. We have an episode length of 51 minutes and a series length of 6 episodes. Rap Man, who is known for the 2019 film Blue Story and the gripping internet tale of Shiro's story, which had me in a chokehold when that was being released, is in fact the series creator as well as the writer and the director for the pilot episode. So good for you, Rap Man. Now, the pilot stars Tosin Cole, who plays Michael, and Cole has appeared in Bob Marley One Love, the Channel 4 soap Hollyoaks, and he was one of Jodie Whittaker's companions on Doctor Who. Cole will also be starring in Three Bags Full, a sheep detective movie. I literally have so many questions, but you and I will both have to wait at least another 2 years for answers because it's currently in pre-production and that's the only piece of information that I had. This really intriguing title. Okay, next on the cast list we have Nadine Mills, who plays Sabrina, and Mills has starred in The Weekend and Sliced. Eric Kofi Abrifa is Andre, and Kofi Abrifa has also appeared in Rap Man's Blue Story, as well as Humans, Sherlock, Harlots, Informer, and The Book of Clarence. Calvin Dember plays Rod, short for Rodney, and Dember also had a run on Hollyoaks, actually at the same time that Cole was starring in the soap. Dember also starred in Youngers, which I remember really enjoying. Used to be on E4. And Dember has also starred in Killed by My Debt and The Rig. Josh Tedeku plays Tazer, and Tedeku has been in A Town Called Malice and most recently the BBC comedy series Borders, which has been commissioned for a second series and I have heard is very, very good and is on that never-ending list to watch. And last but not least, we have Adileo Adideo, who plays Dion, and Adideo has starred in Some Girls, Time Wasters, The Capture, and most recently The Responder on BBC One, which, if you do not know, was one of my favourite shows the year it was released, which at this point was probably about 2 or 3 years ago. And the second series is currently out. It was released this year, but we will get into whether or not I have finished series 2 of The Responder later in this episode. In terms of what made me want to watch Supacell, a better question would be, why wouldn't you want to watch Supacell? Black, tick. British, tick. Gritty, tick. Superhero, tick. Series, tick. Honestly, what doesn't pull you in about all of those words? Now, I will also say that I did recognise Tosin Cole from some of the snippets of the trailer that I saw, because I actually never watched the trailer for this. I think I might have watched 10 seconds of the Netflix trailer, because if you know about Netflix trailers, they will give you the entire storyline in 3 minutes. So I duck in and I duck right back out. But as I was saying, I saw Tosin Cole, recognized him from his stint on Doctor Who, and I thought, you know what, good for you going from companion to lead. Definitely worth checking out. Okie dokie, let's talk the first 10 minutes of Michael, the pilot episode of the series Supacell. Why the first 10 minutes, you wonder? Well, because the first 10 minutes of a television pilot should essentially make up the first act, that sort of first piece of the structural puzzle that introduces us, the audience, to this brave new world, as well as the main characters. And those initial 10 minutes should entice us to keep watching or to keep reading if we are talking about a script perspective. Now, the first 10 minutes of Michael goes like this. We meet a woman who is running through an underground facility. Warning sirens are going off and armed guards start tracking her down. She reaches the door to freedom and her eyes begin to glow yellow before power shoots from her hand and she is able to blast open the door. She has a taste of sunlight and the sweet smell of freedom before she is shot in the back and killed. This woman is then dragged back through the facility where other people, all black, are being held, and this is all watched by a mysterious man in a suit. We have a very quick introduction, which is just the close-up of an eye which flashes yellow, and it says Supacell. And then we are in South London, and we meet the lovey-dovey couple of Michael and Dion. Michael has bought Dion a new car and Dion worries that they can't afford it, but the whole moment is filled with love and warmth and you immediately know you'd just love to go on a double date with both of them, even if you were single. Then we meet Andre, who arrives at Nando's to meet his ex-partner and his son, and then his ex-partner basically threatens to leave and drag her son with her when Andre doesn't hand over enough money. But Andre begs her to let him spend some time with his son, AJ, which she reluctantly agrees to. So she disappears off and leaves Andre and AJ to enjoy a cheeky Nando's. Next, we meet Tazer and his, let's just say his group of friends. And Tazer and his group of friends show up at a West London house party. And when they arrive, the mood instantly shifts. Before you know it, another group who call themselves the Sixer Boys arrive at the house and start banging on the door for Tazer and his friends to face them. It's, let's just say it's giving California Reds versus Blues. The other crew are ridiculing and shouting insults at Tazer, who doesn't know how to ignore empty words. So he doth go outside to face the other group of boys and then gets stabbed. The police arrive and the Sixer Boys run, leaving Tazer bleeding in the street. And that is about the 11-minute mark. However, I do want to note that we then briefly go on to meet Sabrina, who is a nurse on her way to work, and Rod, who is selling weed on the streets of South London. And they make up the last two members of our quintet. Now, in terms of an intro, I really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I think it did a really good job of setting up scenes for our main characters to give us a sense of their day-to-day lives before everything will eventually change. And I think because we started with that scene at the beginning where this woman is in a mysterious facility using some sort of power, when we then do go on to sort of see these five main characters in their day-to-day lives, you kind of already feel like this is the calm before the storm, and that sort of level of apprehension is quite nice. After the first 10 minutes, I have a lot of question marks about who the people at the start were and how they could possibly be connected to the five main characters. So that is Michael, Andre, Tazer, Sabrina, and Rod. Which is a great segue into talking about the main characters. But before we get into everybody individually, just for a bit of context, Michael, Andre, Tazer, Sabrina, and Rod, at some point or another in the pilot episode, after experiencing an intense emotion / want / need, activate some sort of dormant power within them. Okay, five main characters, let's do this. So we first have Michael, who is the pilot episode's namesake. And you know what? We like Michael. We like Michael. He's just a good old regular, schmegular, degular, hardworking Joe, you know? And this level of niceness and contentment is built up really nicely and will eventually contrast with the Michael of the future. So we do learn in the pilot episode that at some stage in Michael's future, he will of course gain some sort of superpower, and he also will experience a loss. So it will be interesting to find out how these two things change him as a person. And so it's quite intriguing to think about who we might meet after Michael has gone through these trials and tribulations. Now, in terms of his superpower, Michael has superclock. That's what I'm calling it after the pilot episode. He has superclock. And I'm calling it superclock because Michael can transport himself forward and backwards, both in time and space? Question mark? We don't really get many explanations for the powers in this episode. So yeah, he's got superclock. Next we have Andre, and Andre is also a good guy. He's just a good guy trying to get by, trying to spend some time with his son. And All of this is just made so much more difficult because he has got financial troubles and possibly a criminal record, which means that he cannot keep a job. And you really, really feel for him in the pilot episode. And you can understand his anger, which is what activates his super strength. Also, I want to be clear that I'm saying super spelt Supa. I would say that was pretty obvious, but just in case you didn't catch what I was throwing out there, all the supers in this entire episode, I'm spelling Supa. I'm saying Supa. Okay, the next member of the Super Five is Rod, and I'm not going to lie, Rod is a little annoying. We actually don't know too much about Rod, but we do get the sense that he has had a major life change. We just don't know what that is. However, said big life change has led to him trying to sell weed on the South London streets like a car salesman. And that's probably what I find so annoying about him. He's so pushy. I'm like, anybody talking to your ass, Rod? Mind your business. Now, Rod's superpower is super speed, which we see him activate when he is running for the bus and then, ends up in Edinburgh. So slightly further than he was aiming for. Next is Sabrina, and Sabrina comes across as a really kind and caring woman she's just trying to stay positive and hope for the best in this crazy old life we're living, She is another one who I think her powers could change. We do get a snippet of what she looks like once she's embraced her power, and I'm not going to lie, she looks like an absolute baddie. I want to be her. I want to be her. And that Sabrina is so far removed from the demure nurse that we meet in the pilot episode. In terms of her power, hard to say at this stage. I mean, I'm just working off what I've got and vibes, and I would say that Sabrina has superkinesis. Yes, that is what I'm sticking with, superkinesis. In the pilot episode, we watch her fling a man across the street and lift a car without so much as lifting a finger. Superkinesis. And then the final member of this little super team, super squad, is Tazer, aka Teo. When I tell you I am literally sobbing for this boy. I really loved how they painted Tazer one way at the start as just being another street thug perpetuating knife crime and gang violence. However, if you just stopped and looked a little deeper, you see that Tazer is sad and angry and alone. He lives with his grandmother and he hates his mother, who he believes abandoned him. What he doesn't know is the truth, but we know the truth. We know the truth. And the truth, you will literally be crying at the truth. So, yes. Oh, poor little Teo. In terms of powers, we don't really see Tazer use powers in the pilot episode, but we do kind of get an idea of how he handles his powers. I don't know. I'm going to go with super knives. Yep, super knives. Maybe he'll be like that guy in the Umbrella Academy. 6? I cannot remember their numbers, but that's coming out soon. The last 2 parts of the Umbrella Academy. But there's the guy with the knives who has perfect aim and never misses, and he wants to be number 1, but he's number 6. Or he's number 5. Can he remember? Anyway, perhaps that is what Tazer has, some sort of super knives ability. So that's what I'm going with. Right, those were all the main characters. Now, in terms of an antagonist, we aren't directly introduced to the antagonist. However, I doth believe it is the unknown organisation holding all those black people hostage that we see in the beginning of the pilot episode. Now, I will say, speculation gen has come out to play here. So I will say that we do hear about a sickle cell organisation or a charity or something called Health and Unity in the pilot episode. And for no reason whatsoever, except for the fact that they were mentioned, I am suspicious. I think that they might be linked to this mysterious group who is capturing and storing black South Londoners that we meet at the beginning. I don't know. Could be nothing, but my narrative senses are tingling and I never, ever ignore them. And now it is time for a quick interlude to see what TV and film life is looking like beyond the pilot principle. And listeners, play the victory lap song because I have finally finished The Remains of the Day by Kazu Ishiguro. The novel tells the story of Mr. Stevens, who is an old English butler, and he is on his way to go and see a former housemaid who now lives in the West Country, I want to say. something like that. Anyway, as he is on this drive, he is recalling various moments in his life spent at Darlington Hall, which is the estate that he works at and which this housekeeper also used to work at. I really enjoyed the book. I really felt for Mr. Stevens. And at one point, I did end up in a sort of existential crisis, thinking about my own life and the chances taken and missed. Speaking of chances taken and missed, I'm now reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi, and it is another slow and thoughtful read split into 4 stories, and I have just started the 3rd stories, which means, for anybody who remembers, I am on track to at least starting 3 books before the end of the month. But time is ticking. Now, in terms of film, I did watch the movie The Remains of the Day after I finished the book. I do think I watched it too quickly. It might have been the next day. So the entire time I was watching it, I was like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. They changed that. They changed that. But if I strip all of that back, I will say it was a pretty enjoyable movie. I also watched Trigger Warning, which was the new Jessica Alba. Yeah, Jessica Alba movie on Netflix. That was so-so. I think it's basically a 2-star watch, maybe even 1.5 star. I will say that Jessica Alba really has a way with knives. I do have a couple of movies on my list coming out soon that I do hope to get to. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot. I also watched The Bike Riders. I watched The Bike Riders in cinema this week. What a movie. That was really, really good. I enjoyed that. I thought the cast was stellar. The story was stellar. And it really just goes to show that you can make a good piece of cinema without it having to be like 4 hours long. I think the movie's just under 2 hours. I would definitely recommend it. The story was gripping and the tale of this bike riding club, the Vandals, and their rise and fall was done really, really well. So yes, I knew I watched something good. I knew I watched something good this week. And then 2 movies that are on my list to hopefully get to this week include A Family Affair on Netflix, which is the Nicole Kidman, Joey King and Zac Efron rom-com. And then Axel F, which is the 4th installment of the Beverly Hills Cop series. I am very much looking forward to watching Axel F. I loved the Beverly Hills Cop series growing up. Was the movie rated an 18? Yes. Was I like 10? Also yes, but Beverly Hills Cop 3 is still one of my favourite nostalgic movies. Finally moving on to TV, and we are into the flop list. First it was reading, now it's television. Apparently I cannot have it all. So I haven't really been watching anything. Nothing has pulled me in. So, you know, the usual suspects are still on the list. I need to watch episode 2 and the rest of series 2 of The Responder. I need to watch Bridgerton Series 3 and The Bear Series 3 just dropped. Not to mention, if I like Supacell, that will also be added to the list of things that I need to watch and finish ASAP Rocky. Ooh, one thing that I did finish, however, is the new series of Doctor Who. Overall, I will say it was a good series. It pulled me back into the world of Doctor Who because I don't believe I watched the last 2 series of Jodie Whittaker's iteration of the Doctor. I might have only watched her very first series, now I say that. So yes, this pulled me back into the world of Doctor Who in the best way possible, and I really liked the dynamic between Nkuti Gatwa and Millie Gibson as the Doctor and Ruby Sunday. And as a special treat for you, here's my ranking of the 8 episodes of Doctor Who. So in 8th place we have Space Babies, in 7th place we have Empire of Death, in 6th place, we have The Legend of Ruby Sunday. In 5th place, we have Rogue. In 4th place, we have Boom. In 3rd place, we have Dot and Bubble. In 2nd place, we have The Devil's Cord, which of course means that in 1st place, we have 73 Yards, which I believe was also voted as the nation's favourite episode according to, I believe it was a Radio Times article or something. I don't know. If you want to know the reasons I ranked them in that order, then you can check that out over on my TikTok page at A Writer of Sorts. And of course, you can also find me over on Instagram Threads and Twitter/X at Pilot Principle, where we can talk about the latest in film and TV and books. Now, in terms of what I liked about the pilot episode of Supacell, Michael, I really enjoyed the subtle way it was all connected. So, for example, in the pilot episode, we see Rod trying to sell weed to Andre and Michael at 2 different points. Michael delivers a package to Sabrina's house, and it's her sister who answers the door. Tazer was in the hospital where Sabrina worked and where Michael's mum is also a patient. And Tazer and Michael have a run-in when Michael comes to make a delivery in his estate. It was all very sliding doors, which was so much fun and sort of amped up my anticipation of finally getting to see all of these characters come together. Oh, we also got a shot of a CCTV camera every time one of the characters activated their powers in public. We don't really get an explanation as to who is watching from behind said CCTV. However, it makes us believe that somebody is watching, and that really makes the hairs at the back of your neck stand up. On the flippity flip side, in terms of what I didn't like so much, this is more so me nitpicking. Nitpicking Jen has returned. But I kind of felt like it was not exactly formulaic, but I could see and read and feel the story beats, which might not be a problem for anybody else, but it was something that I became super aware of at one stage. The best way I can think to describe what I mean is when you watch a procedural drama, you know exactly what's going to happen or the main outline of the episode. You know the FBI is going to get a call. They're going to go ham. They're going to interrogate the wrong people. Somebody's going to mislead them. But actually, it turns out somebody that they've spoken to has actually lied to them and they are more involved than they let on. And then they go after, like, you just know exactly what is going to happen. At the end of the episode, the case will be solved. So this had a level of familiarity for me. Can't quite put my finger on why, but that's the best I got. The other thing to mention is more of a question for the pilot episode, because that's what we're here to look at, even though certain things will be explained later on. But my question is, what are the rules of time travel in this series? There was something that happens at the very end of the episode, and I was like, is that allowed? Is that allowed? Because every piece of science fiction and comic book hero has told me that that's not allowed. But we'll get to that in a moment because we need to get to that all-important question. So let's run it back and take a look at the pilot overall. So just as a quick reminder of the synopsis, it tells us that delivery driver Michael has big plans for the future with his girlfriend until something odd starts happening to him and others across South London. I think that was a very good synopsis, wrapped it up very, very well. I thought the writing was good, it was appropriate. You got the sense of both a cultural and individualistic language rhythms. Look at me, big words today. In terms of the setting, South London, London, I think that was very clearly signposted. I thought the pace was fine. The rush of the opening, juxtaposed with the slow setup of the characters, kept you on edge. So happy days. And in terms of the end of episode hook, Michael teleports to the future where he meets himself. And we see a battle about to brew. Now, future Michael takes past Michael to a cemetery and says it's not too late to save to save Dion, who is destined to die in a few months from past Michael's timeline. Our Michael, present Michael. Hopefully you get what I mean. So this is where my question from earlier comes in. Why can your future self talk to your past self and convince your past self to casually change the future? Are you not worried about how this will affect the space-time continuum? This goes against everything I've been taught, so I don't know how I feel about that. Now, in terms of the serial arc, everything will be leading to this event where we saw future Michael and the other future iterations of the 4 other main characters getting ready to fight these 5 hooded figures who come out of some sort of portal. And from what we can gather, this takes place in the not so distant future. So of course, before we get to that point, we know that we need to watch all of these 5 characters come together. We need to at some stage understand who this big fight is going to be with. And let's not, of course, forget the big bad organization at the start. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? Who's going to stop them? And does this have anything to do with why Michael and co have got powers? Or these 5 cloaked figures coming in through the portal that we see in the future. Well done for making it this far. We have now got one question left to ask, and that is, will I be continuing with Supacell? Pause for dramatic effect. Yes, and here is why. Personally, I like the genre. From the pilot episode of Supacell, I was getting sort of Misfits meets They Clone Tyrone meets The Lazarus Project. And also, you know that I'm always looking for something that's not a police drama to watch. So, tick, 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 boom. I think the pilot did a really good job of character setup, and the way it was bookended by the events at the start and at the end, I really want to know more. And finally, it was a really, really easy watch. I nearly went right on ahead and watched episode 2. And like I mentioned in the Behind the Pod segment, I'm not really feeling anything right now, TV wise. So the fact that I was drawn in to keep watching, I'm not going to ignore that. But that is, of course, just me. And you might not be a fan of Supacell if you absolutely abhor science fiction and you're over that save the cheerleader, save the world malarkey. Another reason Supercell might not be for you is if you prefer having one central main character to follow, their lives, their highs, their lows, and you cannot be bothered to do the same thing times 5. And finally, you might not enjoy Supercell if you prefer big budget, high quality effects in your shows because, yeah, something tells me when it comes to the powers, it's just this. Think the budgets of Doctor Who over the budgets of, say, Marvel's Doctor Strange. And the only thing left to do now is to give the pilot episode Michael a pilot score, and I will be going with a 4 out of 5. I thought the start and the end of the pilot was incredibly intriguing. I think they did a fantastic job with the character setup for 5 characters. 5, that's a big deal, and I feel like I know all of these characters, their ins and outs, at least at face value from the pilot episode. And not only that, I am already emotionally invested in at least 3 of the characters, which is very, very difficult to achieve. The only thing knocking a point off for me is the rules of their powers and why these individuals have been selected. Which, yes, isn't necessary information for the pilot, but it's so random it kind of takes you out of the fantasy for just a second. Now that we've hashed out the fundamental principles, will you be giving the pilot episode a watch? Or have you already binged every episode of Supercell? You know what, just for fun, go and leave me a black heart emoji over on Threads, Instagram and Twitter/X at Pilot Principle, or over on TikTok at A Writer of Sorts so I know who has listened to this episode, and I will catch you in the next one.